So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Eric Meltzer. I'm a partner in Blockchain. So we're one of the early investors in Zcash. And we've held on to Zcash through highs and lows. And actually, we're buying more Zcash now. So I would say we're kind of true believers in this thing. And one of the things that we think really needs to happen for Zcash is for there to be some sort of sustainable mechanism to fund people building out this huge ecosystem of businesses that need to exist to make Zcash really usable. And at the moment, we have a foundation, and the foundation's great, but there's a lot of things that are like more commercial in nature that are not going to get funded through foundation grants. And so we think it would be cool to have some sort of an ecosystem fund for Zcash, and we've been kind of working on that for a while now. Okay, so I guess first of all, I would say most ecosystem funds kind of suck. They raise way too much money. So if you, all of you guys, I don't have to name any names, but I mean, we could start with like EOS, Definity. Like these guys are all raising these $100 million, $200 million, $1 billion ecosystem funds. And the problem with that is like an ecosystem fund inevitably can invest in less things than a normal fund. And as a result, they lower the bar a lot and they invest in some kind of lame stuff. However, I think there is actually a lot of value in having a fund like this. It just needs to be pretty small. And the reason there is that like in an industry like this, there's so much hype and there's so much opportunity cost for whatever you build that a lot of times like, you know, building out something that would be really, really useful for Zcash, like say a mobile wallet that can do Z transactions, is maybe not top of mind for developers. But if they were able to get easily funded to do it, they would actually build this stuff out. And it would be great for everyone that's a Zcash holder. There's a lot of other stuff we want to see built. We want to see Zcash-focused exchanges. We want to see people building out the network security layer. So like right now, Zcash transactional privacy is definitely best in class. But if you're connecting to the Zcash network you know, over your normal ISP, then that's a huge vulnerability. So we need more mixed nets. We need more onion routing. We need all of these things to get built. So when I first had this idea, I talked to Zuko about it a little bit, and I talked to a lot of the people we know in the ecosystem that are big holders of ZEC. And we were just going to do it as kind of a normal fund. And we got really great response. I mean, so everyone that held Zcash was really into this, and we were kind of ready to launch the thing. And then what we realized is that, you know, in the US and in most of the other jurisdictions we're looking at, the tax issue is basically insurmountable. So you have this big problem where, like, if someone puts ZEC into a fund designed to fund Zcash stuff, that counts as selling their Zcash. And that means they have a tax burden. And so a lot of these people that have a lot of Zcash are real believers in Zcash and don't have very much fiat. And so they end up having to sell more Zcash to cover the tax burden, and then they have to sell more Zcash to cover that tax burden. And you have this like ridiculous recursive thing. And so we kind of have to figure out how to get around that. And we talked to the Zcash lawyers, and we talked to our lawyers, and the end result was basically that we think there's kind of no good way to do this. There's like some really complicated ways to do this, but there's no kind of silver bullet that works here. The other thing is like a traditional fund structure is not very robust from a regulatory perspective, and it's also obviously not very decentralized. So we've been thinking a little more about how to do this, and kind of what I'm thinking about now. I haven't mentioned this to Zuko yet, so Zuko's hearing about this right now for the first time. I think it would actually be better to directly fund something like this out of the founder's reward. And so the idea here is that you would have some kind of a cutout, like the one that goes currently to the scientists, that goes directly to a fund, and then that fund makes investments in things that we think are really good for Zcash. And then at the end of the fund period, the returns from the fund, I mean, so like a lot of these products that you fund, they're going to do really well. Like exchanges are very profitable, wallets are very profitable. You know, the fund liquidates itself and then actually just recirculates that Zcash back to the founder's reward. So I think there's a lot of advantages in doing it this way. And I would be happy to like run this thing for free. Like, you know, typically we take a lot of carry from our LPs, but we're already big Zcash holders anyway. So if we ended up doing this, we'll just do it pro bono. And you know, if we can actually make this happen, I think like it'll accelerate Zcash development a lot, because like all these wallets and all these things are just not getting built at the moment. And I think traditional funds are not going to be the ones funding them. So obviously this is like a huge proposal. It would require a lot of community consensus. I imagine it's going to be very contentious. And I don't really want to wait, because there's already a lot of cool stuff out there that I want to fund. And so in the meantime, I have this like informal sort of Zcash investment alliance with Dovi from Danhua and a bunch of other investment friends. We're going to throw up a website for that in the near future. But we're already doing like strategic investments for Zcash out of our funds. We'd like to scale that up a lot, but we're already kind of getting started, and we don't want to wait. So yeah, I'd love to hear people's input on this. I want to hear why this is a terrible idea from everyone. Most of you probably have my Twitter already. You can come yell at me after this session. And yeah, let's get this ecosystem stuff up, and let's get some cool stuff built for Zcash. And I'm going to bring up Iran now, if he's out here.
Hello, I'm Eran Tormer, and I'm here to tell you about the Zcash Foundation's grant program.